Thank you, Count Corla. I nearly called you last Count Corla there for a minute, such is the excitement. Yeah, well, look, I too would like to wish all my colleagues, fellow family members and all females today in International Women's Day a very happy International Women's Day. But in particular, I thought about this, Count Corla, and I thought about coming in here year after year and talking about International Women's Day and what actually changes. Two very special women that I want to mention today, and I spoke to them, I have their permission to divulge the story and the information, are Rita and Caitlin Gaffney. Rita is Caitlin's mother. She was married to Lar Gaffney, a wonderful man by all accounts, and unfortunately Lar passed away in October last year. Rita's daughter Caitlin, on the news that her grandfather died, but then her father Lar was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and Caitlin ensued a battle against anorexia. And in August last year, Caitlin's mum, Rita, contacted me, having totally exasperated all means that she had in which to ensure her daughter's survival. Her daughter, Caitlin, was 17, and having spent 8 weeks in the earlier part of 2023 in Wexford General Hospital, was now in her 4th week in Waterford University Hospital. And if you can imagine this, Count Corla, at 17 years of age, a fine, tall young woman weighing 36 kilos on entering the hospital and coming down whilst having spent 4 weeks in that hospital under supervision of a dietitian, albeit not a paediatric dietitian, her weight reduced to 32 kilos. She was assessed by Aishlin, who said that unfortunately, in order to enter an eating disorder facility, she had to be at least 40 kilos in weight, so as that they could be sure that she had the compos mentis and capability, the brain activity capability to understand the treatment that they would ensue. When Caitlin's mother contacted me, it was a Thursday evening of a bank holiday weekend, the August bank holiday weekend. I actually couldn't believe it myself. I asked her all sorts of questions like who the psychologist was, had she been in CAMHS? Yes, she'd been in CAMHS, but had never seen a psychologist in CAMHS. And the psychologist had never attended the hospital where Caitlin was now. Now, to be fair to Waterford University Hospital, they are not equipped to deal with anorexia as a condition. It's a mental health condition. And despite their best efforts, there was no intervention made to have Caitlin move to a facility like Lindara or Aishlin. I spoke to the psychologist who confirmed to me that he would make contact with Caitlin's mum, Rita, that evening. I contacted Rita and said, look, the psychologist is going to call you, but if he doesn't, please let me know and I'll meet you in the hospital in the morning. What else could I do? There was no contact, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, I went to the hospital with Rita's mother and 2 of her sisters to visit with Caitlin, bearing in mind Rita's husband, Caitlin's father, is lying at home with a carer with a terminal illness, and this is August, and he dies in November. The stress that was placed on this family and her sisters, Ciara and Orla, to keep Caitlin alive, because I was told in the hospital that Caitlin was at the point of no return. I soon came to understand, Count Corla, that what that meant was that organ failure would ensue. It may be kidney failure, it could have been heart failure, but all efforts were placed and the onus placed on Caitlin's mum to keep Caitlin in the bed, not to expend any energy. And the cleverness of this condition and what it does to a person was just unbelievable. Unbelievable that this young girl could have been left in this state, literally to die. And we are celebrating International Women's Day. Well, for me, having her moved and getting her moved under very arduous circumstances. It was fought on all grounds, from it being a bank holiday weekend to having to get a court order in order to force feed her, to I don't want to relive it myself, but the reality is that we still see Caitlin in Lindara today. She was day released to go to her father's funeral. The failings. Meant that Caitlin didn't spend the time with her dying father. It's a failure of this state to provide the most basic care. And there are hundreds in Wexford alone suffering the same fate under CAMS, under CDNT, and still we come in here week after week and all we hear is that there are recruitment issues. I spoke to Caitlin before coming in, Count Corla. Caitlin can't come back. There's been a conference call between Lindara and CAMS in Wexford. Lindara are recommending that Caitlin not return to CAMS for fear she'd regress. They're prepared to give her out of care service, which means that her mother will have to make runs up and down to Dublin, or maybe even move to Dublin to ensure that her daughter recovers. Now, I am sorry for getting upset, but I'm facing every day stories like this. But I feel it's important that we actually do better, that we can only celebrate International Women's Day if we practice what we preach. It's not good enough to celebrate women all over the world and sports accolades and different things who don't face adversity like this. And don't get me wrong, they deserve to be commended, but not when we are failing the most vulnerable in our society. When we every day in this chamber, we say that those facilities are there. You've heard it, Count Corla. I have expressed that ministers bury their head in the sand when I come in here to tell it as it is. And they continually tell me that there are no waiting list in CAMS. I've told them why there's no waiting list, but no investigation takes place. Nothing further happens. We're just lucky that Caitlin is still here to tell her story, and tell it she will. But the reality is that we don't know what issues Caitlin will face in the future. Whether they are issues, I don't need to go into them, but I will say this. On the list of my international women stand Rita Gaffney, her 3 daughters, and her late husband, Lara. Thank you.